All right, guys. So we're waiting on the debate. We've got about 2 minutes. I do want to verify that the audio is
Mehmet
working.
Oz,
So let me know if you guys can hear this.
Stage tonight.
Please.
Join us for this exclusive live debate as the candidates for Pennsylvania's U.S.
Just
Senate.
somebody give me a thumbs up here
It's a
if they can
critical
hear that
Your
audio.
Questions to the candidates. Hear what they have to say about issues that matter to you.
All
The
right, so
Pennsylvania U.S.
hopefully
Senate
you
debate
guys can
tonight
actually-
at 8, only on ABC 27, your local election headquarters.
I was a teacher.
I was a waitress. I used to be an X-ray tech.
I love being a security guard. I was a bus driver. I miss being a nurse's aide.
Cool. Audio
Audio's
appears
It's
good.
their job
So
to take care of their children. They still
Very
can't
fun.
work, and our economy is suffering because affordable, reliable childcare simply isn't available.
If you want my vote,
Tell me how you'll solve the childcare crisis.
I am a child care voter.
We are childcare voters.
This act was paid for by children.
I had to laugh as we were watching like the ads for the news channel for this. Like, how do you have a weather department on local news that's just for white dudes? That's so crazy.
It's pretty weird.
27 News. Experience matters.
Pennsylvanians are in pain.
There he is,
I see it in
Dr.
your
Nick
faces,
Riviera.
Your eyes. Inflation is hurting everyone. Gas prices.
Hi everybody!
food
Oh my God,
prices,
I'd pay so much money if he introduced
John
himself
Fetterman
at the
will
debate
raise
stage.
everyone's taxes,
Definitely.
making
That way.
inflation that much worse.
It is really
We need
funny.
more balance
Like this
and
is
less
basically
extremism in Washington.
like
I'm
Dr.
not a
Nick
politician.
Riviera
I'm a
versus
heart
Tyson Fury.
More importantly, I'm a husband and a dad. I'm running to improve people's lives. It's what doctors do. I'm Dr. Oz. I approve this message.
I am actually
Helping
interested
our
in this
viewers
debate
is what I'm
more
here
than
for.
the
If
more
you're
than the
having trouble
Walker.
getting results,
God, this
contact
fucking
the
audio is so
27 investigators.
bad.
Why? Because it'll actually be fucking substantive from both sides instead of like.
Yeah, like, look, whether you agree with Oz or you agree with Fetterman, like, they're both intelligent guys, right? Like, so they're at least going to have a coherent debate of ideas. Like, the Walker Warnock debate was just like, here's my badge. Like, that's not a policy. You know what I mean? So at least this one will be able to actually, like, hear these two guys chat about.
Honestly, I think this is probably Oz's like best chance to make like a statement because he's actually like a TV guy, right? Like he should be good in this forum.
Yeah.
And Fetterman notably not awkward or sorry, notably very awkward in debates. It's not his preferred battleground, let's
Right.
say. So
Look, just so folks know, we are going to be talking about if you don't like the F word, you can leave. Oh, did you mean Fetterman? Okay, I thought you meant cursing. Sorry. I was like, wait, what? So we are going to be talking about the debate as it's going on. So if you're just looking for like just the debate, you can stream that somewhere else. This is actually going to be us talking about it live. Also, we'll be doing our show afterwards. So hopefully you stick around and enjoy that if that's what you want to do. Just a heads up. So yeah, look, I'm looking forward to this. I do think this is probably going to be if. Oh, you meant cursing? Oh, you did. Okay. For your first prize. So
that's
yeah,
true.
Look, I think this is probably Oz's best chance at catching Fetterman like truly in this. So, all right, here we go.
Here in Harrisburg, along with Lisa Sylvester from WPXI in Pittsburgh, will moderate tonight's debate. We want to welcome our viewers watching tonight from across the country on News Nation. Voters can watch this debate in all 67 Pennsylvania counties on 9 television stations serving the Commonwealth. Before we get started, let's go over tonight's rules. Mr. Fetterman, Mr. Oz,
67 seems
you will have
low as
60
far as
seconds
counties,
to answer
even
each question.
in like a
If
giant
there's a
state like
follow-up
the
question or rebuttal, you will have up to 30 seconds. Each candidate will also have 90 seconds for a closing statement.
Of course, there's like a million
When your time
townships
is up,
inside of
you'll
those
hear
counties. So
this bell.
Bye, Paul.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Dennis and Lisa.
Thank you, Leland. Good evening, candidates who moments ago just met for the first time. We're happy to have you here. Welcome to our audience watching at home on air, online,
to be
and on
expected.
News Nation. And we
You know,
encourage
Dr. Oz is a
everyone who
tourist
watching
visiting
tonight to
Pennsylvania.
share your thoughts on
John
social
Fetterman
media. Remember to use
lives in
the
Harrisburg.
hashtag PA Senate Debate.
And you may notice these large monitors that are behind us. This is part of our closed captioning system. It was requested by John Fetterman to help him process the questions that we are asking him tonight, and approved by both campaigns, and both candidates can see the monitors.
One of the screens will show only the questions being asked tonight. The second screen will caption the questions and responses from Mehmet Oz. We have live,
I think it's cool that they're
experienced
doing that.
captioners in studio
nice.
to ensure we are as
stuff.
accurate as possible in what's sure to be a fast-paced program.
And just a note, for those of you using closed captioning at home, the captions you see are not tied to the captions that the candidates will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that, let's get started.
That could be a little
confusing. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and one term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show. He's done that during his campaign about lying about our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush two words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor,
It'll be interesting
a
how people take
businessman,
this.
and television personality. But this is your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions. I want to bring civility, balance, all the things that you want to see because you've been telling it to me on the campaign trail. And by doing that, we can bring us together in a way that has not been done of late. Democrats, Republicans talking to each other. John Fetterman takes everything to an extreme, and those extreme positions hurt us all. Let's take crime as an example because it's been such a big problem. Maureen Faulkner accompanied me today to the studio. You know that her husband was a police officer in Philadelphia, was brutally murdered. John Fetterman, during this crime wave, has been trying to get as many murderers convicted and sentenced to life in prison out of jail as possible, including people who are similar to the man who murdered her husband. He does it without the rest of the parole board agreeing. He's doing it without the families on board. These radical positions extend beyond crime to wanting to legalize all drugs, to open the border, to raising our taxes. I want Washington to be civil again.
Watch out about opening that Pennsylvania border. Gotta be careful.
Okay.
Would bring that.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right,
might let those West
on
Virginians
to the economy.
into the state.
Pennsylvanians are struggling to put food on the table and gas in their cars. Our Next Star Emerson College The Hill poll shows the economy and inflation are the biggest concerns for voters. 39% of them listed that as the top issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz. You have blamed President Biden and reckless Democratic spending for the inflation crisis, but voters would like to hear your specific plan to cut spending. Please explain in 60 seconds.
Yes, it's entirely their
If you
fault.
ask the U.S. government, they'll tell you they have 4% waste and fraud. Now, I've traveled over the Commonwealth and spoken to countless people. There was a lady in Beaver County at a county fair who told me with fear in her heart that she wanted to provide food for her son's highly nutritious chicken she wanted. She couldn't afford it anymore. That's a big problem.
Gotta go to a Wegmans for that.
Waste and fraud, we ought to be able to take care of that. John Fetterman's, however, response continually is to raise taxes. He raised taxes as mayor. He tried to raise taxes as a lieutenant governor, 46%. That's a big tax rate. He supported Joe Biden's recent tax rate increase, and he's done that without paying his own taxes 67 times. I'll say that again. He hasn't paid his own taxes 67 times, but he's raising mine and yours. Those are radical positions. They're extreme. They're out of touch with the values of Pennsylvanians.
Yours? You don't live here, and you're a multi-millionaire.
As you do in the operating room as a surgeon.
Also, he's not 67 years old. How is he avoiding paying taxes 67
times? On a population already desperately in pain from the high inflation rate.
Mr. Fetterman, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal. He has specifically said you have not paid your taxes and that you want to raise taxes on Americans. How do you respond?
Absolutely. The Oz rule, of course, he's lying. It was helping 2 students 17 years ago to help them, buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got her paid, and it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continuing with you, Mr. Fetterman, your opponent has criticized Democratic spending, as you heard. Has the Biden administration overspent? And if so, where do you think spending should be cut? You have 60 seconds.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about inflation. Right now, because it's a tax on working families, and Dr. Oz can't possibly understand what that is like. He has 10 gigantic mansions.
The thing that drives me nuts about Republicans talking about inflation is that all they talk about, inflation's high. Well, what do you want to do to lower it?
Sure also pushing back
they don't have an
price
answer.
Gouging.
Inflation's high.
We also
and they don't admit that it's a worldwide issue.
In Pennsylvania, and make more in America. When he had a choice to make his merchandise, the Oz label is on, he made it all in China. Who can you believe that can fight against inflation and pushing back against corporate greed, or somebody that is choosing working in China?
Well, see, and the thing that is going to drive me nuts tonight is Fetterman's
15-second rebuttal to his comments.
Advantage that he has is he can actually talk about policy, because Democrats have ideas and Republicans don't have shit. So I think that's where he has the biggest chance to beat him, and I think just banging him over the head with stuff like that is not going to be helpful.
And he hasn't been able to earn a living on his own. He's lived off his parents. So it's not a topic that we should be debating on the stage. We should be talking about crime and inflation, the issues that are hurting Pennsylvanians that they're talking about at their kitchen table.
No, that's it. He got his Pennsylvania house from his own inlays from $1.
Mr. Fetterman, we have to continue on. We'll continue on with a follow-up question to you, Mr. Oz. This one is just for you. You tweeted in August that you will never stop fighting to lower gas prices for Pennsylvanians. Does that include supporting a suspension of the federal gas tax? You have 30 seconds.
I'm supportive of reducing taxes, but we want to be thoughtful about the long-term game plan to get gas taxes down and, frankly, all energy prices down. I have gone around the Commonwealth. I've witnessed people say, I'm not going on vacation this year because I can't afford to pay to take my trailer to the campground. They can't even get there. What we have to do is ensure that we don't have increased inflation, and the best way to do that is reduce gas prices. John Fetterman has gone after the energy industry, called it a stain on Pennsylvania, and argued we have to ban fracking. That is disconnected from Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
Fracking has nothing to do with fucking gas prices.
Of fracking later on in
or at least not gasoline, not the gas prices that Americans are quote-unquote worried about.
For a follow-up. In an op-ed for the Wilkes-Barre Times Leader, you wrote, quote, "It is time we crack down on the big price gouging corporations that are making record profits while jacking up prices for all of us." How do you plan to do this, sir? You mentioned going after price gouging corporations. How do you plan to do this? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. We have to keep pushing back on that. And he would never.
You don't
make
have
that
to
choice
be here.
To fight
if
for,
you want to go listen to right-wingers eat Oz's dick, leave.
Families here in Pennsylvania. He has never met an oil company that he doesn't swipe right about. He has never been able to stand up for working families all across Pennsylvania.
Ryan, get the fuck out.
We must push back.
Leave.
Inflation has hurt Americans and Pennsylvania's families, and it has given the oil companies record profits.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
The minimum wage in Pennsylvania and at the national level currently sits at $7.25 an hour and has not been increased
I have a
since
feeling I'm going to
2009.
be really pissed off about this debate because neither of them are talking about actual policy ideas, which is very frustrating.
New Jersey at $13 an hour and West Virginia at $8.75. But Pennsylvania has not followed suit. The first question is for you, Mr. Fetterman. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at $7.25 an hour. And how can a man, with 10 gigantic mansions, has unwilling to talk about a willing wage for anybody? Imagine a single mom with 2 children, trying to raise with them, realizing making $31,000 a year, $15 an hour. I believe every work has dignity, and every paycheck must have dignity in it as well. True, I've always supported a living wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Fetterman. What do you say to small business owners who have told us that if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour, it would put them out of business? You have 30 seconds.
Now, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full-time, you should be able to live in dignity as well, true. And I believe they haven't have any businesses being you can't have businesses being subsidized by not paying individuals that just simply can't afford to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, turning to you. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with a hotel worker actually here in Harrisburg a few months ago, and he was telling me how hard it was to live on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that, but John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents.
What?
He's not really cognizant of the real challenges of business owners who've got to balance that with employees. Thankfully, we have a solution. And John, you didn't answer the question. You can't put businesses out of commission in order to pay more wages, because the wages will go to zero, which is John Fetterman's radical plan if you really follow it to conclusion. Here's what I would do. We have one of the richest energy states in the country. I believe if we could unleash the energy beneath our feet here in Pennsylvania, there'd be plenty of money to go around. We'd have increased wages, more reason for students to take
more earthquakes,
classes, to be
damage to the environment.
Let's barrel headlong into fuel technology that's becoming outdated by the day.
Inflation. That's a plan that works.
But that doesn't answer the question about why, whether you want minimum wage to be $15 an hour. Just
Jay, he wants it to be 20.
No.
Yeah, what argument are you making?
15 is too low.
The answer that he actually had about that in his, he doesn't want to talk about somebody having a living wage and having somebody able to survive again.
And I want to come back to you now, Mr. Oz, for a quick follow-up. What do you say to those Pennsylvanians that he just spoke of that are trying to survive on $7.25 an hour, which is less than all of our neighbors? You have 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't think you should have to survive on $7.25 an hour. I want the minimum wage up as high as it can go. I want to highlight that I have an agenda for prosperity, unlike John Fetterman. I want us all getting paid a lot more than $15. And I answered your question.
You're the first Republican to say that. That's amazing. What are you talking about?
Thrive, and we'd have lots more employees entering the workforce and then prospering, getting paid $25, $35, $45 an hour. But we're never going to get there if we don't unleash our energy. And John Fetterman's stubbornness on calling it a stain on Pennsylvania is an insult to those workers.
To be clear, you said you want people making a lot more, but that's not through a federal law of minimum wage. That's through market forces?
Market forces should drive it up anyway, and it's already done that.
Thank you.
It literally hasn't, which is why the minimum wage is less than $15.
All right, thank you,
How the
gentlemen.
fuck does that even make
Another big
sense?
issue for voters is abortion. Mr. Oz, we will begin with you. You say that you're pro-life, but you do
Jay,
support
see what you do is
exceptions in
you
the
give
cases
tax
of
breaks
rape, incest,
to corporations, and then the money will
Aside
trickle
from
down
those
to
should
the
abortion
workers,
be banned in
clearly.
America? 60 seconds.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions. As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation
Why
to
do
thrive
political
to put
leaders
the
need to be
best
there?
ideas forward
Why?
so states can decide for themselves.
Honestly, to be
John
really
Fetterman,
frank, as
who
someone
on
who's
the
running for
debate
U.S.
stage
Senate, this
said
is
that
probably
he
the
would
best answer you
demand
can give
federally
without saying
mandated
that you're
rules for
against
all states
regulating
have to
abortion.
follow that would
You know what I
allow
mean? Like, I
abortion
don't want the
at
federal
38
government involved.
weeks
Like,
on
let the
the
states
delivery
figure it out.
table, and he would force it to be subsidized by taxpayers across the country, no matter what their personal beliefs are. That's radical. That's extreme. That is out of touch with what the average voter
literally
in Pennsylvania
isn't.
believes is
It
appropriate.
literally isn't.
Now, ironically, John Fetterman's been running ads on this topic, dishonest ads. I need to correct the record. They were so bad, they got pulled off television stations. Even on this station, he was running dishonest ads that I had pulled off. I haven't had a single ad pulled down. My ads tell the truth. John Fetterman's are a fiction of his imagination.
All right, I'm going to let Mr. Fetterman respond specifically about the ads being pulled off the air, and then we will return to you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman.
Yeah, I want to look into the face of every woman in Pennsylvania. You know, if you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice. But if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Roe v. Wade, for me, should be the law. He celebrated when Roe v. Wade went down, and my campaign would fight for Roe v. Wade, and if given the opportunity, to codify it into law.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Going back to you, I want to circle back to something that you said, Mr. Oz. You mentioned the decision to regulate abortion should be something that is left up to the states. Now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has introduced a federal bill to ban abortion after 15 weeks. I know that you've been asked about this question before. If the vote were held today, you were elected senator, you're on the Senate floor, the clerk calls you, there's a roll call vote. Are you a yay or a nay? How would you vote on the Lindsey Graham bill? You have 30 seconds.
Lisa, I don't even need 30 seconds. I'll give you a bigger answer. I am not going to support federal rules that block the ability of states to do what they wish to do. The abortion decision should be left up to states, and specifically when John Fetterman...
You roll with Doug Mastriano.
John, when I'm done, John, you'll have your turn, John.
One moment, Mr. Fetterman. Continue, Mr. Oz.
I've been very clear on my desire as a physician not to interfere with how states decide. So when John purposely, knowingly misrepresents that to women, he scares them. He's purposely trying to
still want the government to be involved. It doesn't matter if it's in your fucking state or not.
That I'm against all abortions when he knows that's not right, claiming that I'm going to be strict with Pennsylvania when he knows that's not honest. I can't be any clearer that I've been on the stage today. John Fetterman, if you just hear that one story today, I'd be really happy, but I know you're not going to, because you're going to go right back to telling the fables that you believe.
Mr. Oz, I want a 15-second clarification. You are saying
he didn't answer it.
that you would leave it up to the states, that the federal government does not have a role here. So are you saying you would not vote for the Lindsey Graham bill?
Any bill that violates what I said, which is the federal government interfering with the state rule on abortion, I would vote against. What I feel strongly about is that women in Pennsylvania understand what I'm saying and not believe that someone who's taken an extreme position...
So what's your actual stance on it, dude? Because you're avoiding that.
Believe that we should, at a federal level, codify 38 weeks of permission to have an abortion and have taxpayers pay for it.
So a yes or no on the Lindsey Graham bill?
I think I've answered this very, very clearly 3 times, Lisa.
Okay, all right.
You fucking didn't.
In fact, you can't say yes or no means you, in fact, did not answer
stated
it.
your belief that abortion should be safe and legal. Do you support any limits on when a woman can have an abortion? Please explain in 60 seconds.
You know, what I support on Roe v. Wade. That was the law of the land for 50 years. He celebrated when it fell down, and I would fight to reestablish on Roe v. Wade. That's what I run on. That's what I believe, and I've always believed that the choice belongs women and their doctors, and he believes that the choice should be with him or Republican legislators all across this nation.
All right.
I'm sorry, I must correct that. Once again, he's
that is what you believe.
I've said, but he also said something very dishonest. On this debate stage, he said very specifically in his primary debate, when he was still debating, that he would support 38 weeks of mandated rules by the federal government that would prevent any state from blocking it. So that's not Roe versus Wade.
That's not true. I support Roe v. Wade. That's the simple.
John, you said specifically you would support a federal rule on 38 weeks.
Thank you.
I love the Republican argument. It's always like they're supporting abortions at 8 months. Like, dude, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Support allocating federal funds to transport women who live in states where abortion is banned to states where they can get one, and why? 30 seconds.
Yes, because fuck you.
I would, because I believe abortion rights is a universal
now
right
ask Oz the same
for
question.
all women.
Like, yeah, you want states to decide.
I believe that abortion is health care.
So scared.
And I believe that that is a choice that belongs with each woman and their doctor.
That's right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's turn to what has become one of the key themes of this race, fitness to serve. For these individual questions, There will be no rebuttals allowed. Mr. Fetterman, we begin with you. You suffered, as you mentioned a moment ago, a stroke 4 days before the May primary. Last week, you released this note from your doctor saying you can work full duty in public office, but you have not released your detailed medical records surrounding your stroke. Mr. Fetterman, will you pledge tonight to release those records in the interest of transparency? You have 60 seconds.
No. To me, for transparency is about showing up. I'm here today to have a debate. I have, speeches in front of 3,000 people in Montgomery County, all across Pennsylvania, big crowds. I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and that's what I believe is appropriate. And now with 2 weeks before the election, I have run a campaign and I've been very transparent about being very open about the fact we're in use captioning. And I believe that, again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe,
guys,
they all believe
the
that
stream
I'm
is
ready to
fucked
be
up.
served.
Follow up, I didn't hear you say you would release your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my Dr. L believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, you have built a lucrative career around medicine, but you've been criticized even by some fellow physicians for promoting,
My favorite
quote,
part is when they give me my money.
unproven, ill-advised, and at times potentially dangerous treatments.
Goji berries are going to make you
response to
lose
that? You have
30
60
pounds.
seconds.
One of the great blessings of traveling around Pennsylvania is you run into people who have watched the show. They thank me very much for giving them life-saving advice on chronic issues like high blood pressure or dealing with their anxiety. The show did.
Hold on, guys.
Oh no.
No, I'm trying to get the stream back. Hold on.
Oh, okay,
This is
that's
like fucking terrible.
And that's what I believe is appropriate. And now with 2 weeks before the election, I have run a campaign and I've been very transparent.
Like I said, honestly, I think he
being
should
very
just release the
open
records.
about
Like,
the
if you
fact
got
we're in
nothing to
use
hide, just fucking
captioning,
put it out
and I
there.
believe
Like, I think
that,
that's the
again,
biggest
my
way.
doctors,
And again,
real
we've called
doctors that I
for,
believe,
they
all
much more
believe that I'm
transparency
ready
around
to be
stuff like
served.
this with other
Follow up,
politicians.
I didn't
So
hear you say you would release your full medical
I
records.
don't see why you
not?
wouldn't.
You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my Dr. L believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, you have built a lucrative career around medicine, but you've been criticized even by some fellow physicians for promoting, quote, unproven, ill-advised, and at times potentially dangerous treatments. What is your response to that? You have 60 seconds.
One of the great blessings of traveling around Pennsylvania is you run into people who have watched the show. They thank me very much for giving them life-saving advice on chronic issues like high blood pressure or dealing with their anxiety. The show did very well because it provided high-quality information that empowered people, which
Are you still
is
messing with the video?
exactly what I want to do when I'm a
Trying to get
senator.
it back.
Give people the power. Let them make decisions for their well-being. Now, John Fetterman's approach to health is a very dangerous one. He believes we should socialize medicine. He embraced this with Bernie Sanders, who he endorsed. The two candidates call themselves the two most progressive people in America. When you have socialized medicine, Dennis, you shut down the ability of people to get access to health care. Doctors stop practicing. There are no medications.
That's
available.
literally
The
not
lines
true.
get long. It's a
That's a
disaster,
complete
and it puts
lie.
people at risk.
No one's a
I don't
doctor in
believe we
fucking
should
the
allow
UK, bro.
socialized
No one's a
medicine,
doctor in
the
Canada.
abolition of all
Shut
private
up.
health care insurance in America, and radical positions like the ones taken by.
like it's
John
saying like
Fetterman
15
make
of the
it
greatest
too
20
extreme to
economies in the
If we're
world
gonna
would
bring balance to
disagree.
Washington, you got to bring people who understand the ramifications. Even Joe Biden called John Fetterman's idea, I'll quote him, preposterous.
I guarantee you that quote has a lot more around it than just the one word you
Did
said.
you or your company make a profit from promoting those products? You have 30 seconds.
I never sold weight loss products as described in those commercials.
Yeah, you never sold them,
It's
dude.
It's a television show. Like this is a television show. So
peddled
people
bullshit.
can run commercials on the shows, and that's a perfectly appropriate and very transparent process. I ruffled a lot of feathers on my show because I told people the truth, and I'm proud of that. I'll do the
That
exact same
goji
thing
berries
as a
are going to
US
make them
senator.
lose 30
But the-
pounds?
Go ahead.
Is that the
But
truth?
There's no way to defend what John Fetterman has done with socialized medicine. That is a radical departure from what we in America have accepted.
I
and
must
relationship
respond
between
to
you,
that.
John, you'll have your turn.
I
John, let me
must
finish.
respond to that.
there must be a relationship between a doctor and a patient.
get a
and
little
that's what I
flustered
would
there.
direct patients to do.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he accused you of socialized medicine, supporting socialized medicine. What is your response?
Yeah, again, it's the Oz rule. He's on TV and he's lying. I never supported any of that thing. You know, he keeps talking about Bernie Sanders. You know, 3 years ago he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, "I love this guy." You know what? Why don't you pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because all you can do is talk about Bernie Sanders. Because my truth is that healthcare is a basic fundamental right, and I believe in expanding that, and I believe about fighting for healthcare, the kind of healthcare that saved my life.
Dennis, that was this
No, that's a good line.
Explicitly supported socialized
Mr. Oz,
medicine.
we have
Bernie
a lot
Sanders.
of topics to get to. I think we've did this. Lisa, you go ahead.
We are going to move on to the next topic, and this has come up earlier, and that is the issue of fracking.
Veggie
Pennsylvania
trays.
only trails Texas in terms of natural gas production. Both of you have taken shifting positions on the issue of fracking. Mr. Oz, we begin with you. You wrote a column in 2014 calling for no fracking pending health study results.
Well, I got the results.
But in a video post
on my
social media in March, you said, quote, "Natural gas guarantees high-paying skilled jobs right here in Pennsylvania, so back off Biden, give us freedom to frack." Mr. Oz, please explain that changing position. 60 seconds.
I've been very consistent. Fracking has been demonstrated. It's a very old technology to be safe. It is a lifeline for this Commonwealth to be able to build wealth, similar to what they've been able to achieve in other states. For that reason, I strongly support fracking, drilling, the piping of that natural gas. In fact, I'd build a facility even in Philadelphia so we can export it to our allies and help them, the ones that are struggling now in Eastern and Western Europe because of the Ukrainian war. John Fetterman calls fracking a stain on Pennsylvania. He says that he would sign a moratorium to ban its continued use. He's against pipelines. He supported the vote against the Keystone pipeline that ended up shutting it down. He supports Biden's desire to ban
lost us
fracking on
12 jobs. Oh my
all
God!
of our lands together.
Shut up.
This is a extreme position on energy.
Yes,
if we
the Keystone pipeline, the famously not American pipeline.
John Fetterman is so
Yes.
rigidly stuck
Canadian
on fighting
fucking,
against
oil
energy
deposits.
companies is stunning to me because it's the jobs I want. Tens of thousands of high-paying jobs to help Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Oz.
Why don't Republicans
Mr.
have the
Fetterman.
same energy for
absolutely
jobs
support
and solar?
fracking. In fact, I live across the street from
Which is actually on the rise.
And they were going to
It's actually
frack
growing.
to create their own energy in order to make them more competitive. And I support that, living closer to anybody else in Pennsylvania for fracking to myself. I believe that we need independence with energy, and I believe I've walked that line my entire career. I believe Democrats...
Mr. Fetterman, I do have a specific question which you can continue on this topic, but you have made two conflicting statements regarding fracking. In a 2018 interview, you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all. I never have." But earlier this month, you told an interviewer, quote, "I support fracking. I support the energy independence that we should have here in the United States." So, Mr. Fetterman, please explain your changing position. 60 seconds.
I'm running for office?
I've always supported fracking. And I always believe that independence with our energy
I will say the moderator's
critical.
doing a much
Can't
better
be
job
held,
in this debate than the Georgia debate.
Ransom to somebody like Russia. You know, I've always believed that energy independence is critical, and I've always believed that, and I do support fracking. I've never taken any money from their industry, but I support how critical it is that we produce our own energy and create energy independence.
I must correct you.
Just a second, Mr. Oz. I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all." So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I do support fracking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman.
Ooh,
On
that-
to
he gonna
Lisa.
pay for that one.
There's not just a statement you read. There are multiple. There's pictures of him signing
we
a
have to
moratorium.
go. We have to move on.
But we have to get the fundamentals of the truth out here. John
we have
Fetterman
a
over
lot
and
of
over
topics.
again
We
took
have a lot of
positions against
topics.
energy.
We have a lot of topics. You will have a chance to have that in your
There may
closing.
one comment then. The energy industry
have to
living
No.
in fear of
move
John
on.
Fetterman.
No, what?
Mr. Oz, we want to now turn to public safety.
No, let me get one
Mr.
in.
Fetterman,
No.
Republicans have called you
got it, bro.
dangerously soft on crime. The Pennsylvania State Troopers Association has endorsed Democrat Josh Shapiro for governor. But in this race, it endorsed your Republican opponent, Mr. Oz. What is your response to those endorsements? And what is your response to accusations that you are, quote, dangerously soft on crime? You have 60 seconds.
No, I believe that I run on my record on crime. You know, I ran to be mayor back in 2005 in order to fight gun violence, and that's exactly what I did. In working with the police and working with our community, I was able to stop gun violence for 5.5 years as mayor. Ever accomplished before or since my time as mayor, because I'm the only person on this stage right now that was successful about pushing back against gun violence and being the community more safe. You know, all he's done is just put a plan up on his website in the last 24 hours. He has no experience. He has never made any attempt to try to address crime during his entire career, except showing up for photo ops here in Philadelphia.
I will give you 15 seconds to respond to that, and then I have a question for you.
The Fraternal Order of Police from Braddock, the small town he represented, endorsed me. They supported me because what he's saying is not true. Violence skyrocketed in Braddock. I mean, the town wasn't in a good shape when John got there. It got worse when he was there. People kept leaving. So, of course, you're going to have all kinds of aberrations. But, John, the city was dangerous under your leadership.
Curious of the population of Braddock, Pennsylvania.
Congress
14
passed
people.
the first gun control bill in decades. That would not have happened without the support of the man you are running to replace, Pat
Let's
Toomey.
see.
How would you
2005,
2750
down to a mighty
2690.
2690.
You have 60
The exodus for Braddock.
I've been supported by Pat Toomey. I've enjoyed working with him. I think he's done a wonderful job. There are parts of that bill that I like a lot. For example, I like the fact that there are background checks that are being strengthened now, so we can make sure that people who should not have guns don't get guns.
Oh, okay.
I also like the fact that
Forgot
there's
what party
a lot of
you're
money
in?
invested for mental health, which is an important part of the equation. I've been to Philadelphia. I've done prayer vigils with black clergy leaders who are desperately trying to save the people in their community. Half the murders in Philadelphia committed by people
smart
under
move by
18,
him just
we
to,
have
you
got
know,
get
make
mental
himself
health
sound
services
reasonable
to
and then
these
just
people,
fuck off
and
on
it's
all
not
that shit if he
happening
gets
now.
elected.
But part of the
You know what I
problem
mean?
is that we have
Of course,
taken
yes,
away
it's,
the ability of police to do their job, and that's on John Fetterman. Because John Fetterman has taken such a harsh position against them. He's undermined them at every level, taken away some of their funding. He's pushed for Krasner, who he admires tremendously, and he's spoken highly of him just this week. He's taken his policies to a new extreme. He's argued that people should be let out of jail without any bail, no matter what they did to get in there.
That's
He's
not
argued to release
true.
One-third of all
Come
prisoners.
on, man.
One-third of all
Jesus.
prisoners out of touch.
Quickly, 15 seconds. Would you have voted for that Pat Toomey supported bill? If you
I would
were
have
in
tried
the
to improve that bill. There are things that I think most of us appreciate.
Yeah,
I
tap
wasn't there at
dance.
the time, so I can't speak to what was possible.
Tap
but I do
dance.
know there are
Come
parts
on.
of that bill that do make sense, and the ones I described should be followed. Let's see how it works out.
Okay, thank you. Lisa.
On to our next issue, and that is illegal immigration. It has been a problem in the United States for decades, but it is now spiking. U.S. Customs and Border Protection just released numbers from fiscal year 2022. They show more than 2.7 million total enforcement actions in the U.S. That is the most ever. Mr. Oz, beginning with you. Republican governors in the South have been sending migrants to Democratic-run cities and states without a plan or without any coordination. It is certainly gaining a lot of attention, but is it an effective way to deal with the influx of migrants? You have 60 seconds.
Lisa, we have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. But I've been into the parts of
Is he the one who
Philadelphia
came
and
up with
Allentown
those?
and Reading, where we have large Latino populations. I understand
John
the
Fetterman?
challenges of the border. My father was an immigrant. My mother were immigrants. You know, I understand what legal immigration offers us, but the completely porous, open nature of our border, which John Fetterman supports, has created a humanitarian
How is this
crisis
argument still
with
working on
cartels
people,
profiting
dude?
with human
'Cause
trafficking
people are
operations. They
fucking
take
dumb,
the
dude.
money, they buy narcotics from China,
That's how.
and bring that into our country. And it's making
Smooth-brained
every state a border
individuals
state. Pennsylvania
can,
is already a border
Jesus.
state because we're
fall for a lot
top
of
3 in the country in fentanyl overdoses. Lisa, I can't go anywhere where, and giving a big event where I don't meet multiple people who say their personal lives have been destroyed because of fentanyl overdoses. Yet John Fetterman not only wants an open border, not only supports sanctuary cities, but he wants to legalize all hard drugs in America, including narcotics. That is, I mean, out of touch with everybody. That radical position was tried in Oregon, which he endorsed. 50% homicide increase rate.
One moment. I will give a 50.
Yeah, I don't believe you. I don't believe you, dude. What are you talking about? No, it's not.
Here, his family's company was levied the largest fine for immigration hiring of immigrant illegals. You know, and I think you should sit this one out about in terms of what a secure border.
All right. We do have a follow-up specifically for you, Mr. Fetterman. Vice President Kamala Harris says the southern border is secure, yet we are seeing an unprecedented number of migrants crossing. Is the border secure? And if not, what would you do to fix what both parties are calling a crisis? You have 60 seconds, Mr. Fetterman.
You know, I believe that a secure border can be compatible with compassion. I believe we need a comprehensive and bipartisan solution for immigration. That's what I believe. I don't ever recall in the Statue of Liberty did they say, take our tired, huddled masses and put them on a bus and use cheap political stunts about them. I believe we have to develop a comprehensive and bipartisan solution to address our issue here for immigration here in our nation.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. On to the next
John's
issue.
not addressing the elephant in the room.
I would love to see Democrats take like that Republican quote unquote attack line against them and be like we're Republicans, like we have the most secure border out there, like we're seizing all of these drugs.
You have 60 seconds.
They actually
by their own admission.
I believe is right now is China. I believe China is not our friend. And I believe that we can't be able to push back, and we need to stand against China. And I believe that Dr. Oz has chosen to manufacture all of his merchandise on his name on it in China. Which one of us on this stage is going to stand up against and stand firm against China? And I believe that's our single biggest issue right now, to make sure that we address China and make sure that we know that it's not our friend.
Mr. Oz, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America?
Terrorists for my stuff.
The fact that our country is not projecting strength. Take, for example, what we're doing with Iran. In order to try to get them to give us a little oil so we can deal with the catastrophe that Russia has caused, we have gone to them and tried to sign a deal that would allow them once again to have the nuclear power to blow up Israel, which they promised they would do. John Fetterman supports that deal. It doesn't make any sense for America to treat our enemies better than our allies. We have to message.
How does this still work on people, dude?
Jesus. In our country, that we have control over our future.
This is like 2016 bullshit arguments from Trump.
Is to unleash the energy here in Pennsylvania and across the country. By not doing that, not only do we cause all kinds of problems with local jobs and inflation, but we're destroying our ability to remain energy dominant, and we're not able to become allies like we should be for countries like European nations, which are going to struggle with their coldest winter ever. It's the best way to punch Putin back and to teach China a lesson is American energy to reign supreme. And John Fetterman doesn't like American energy.
We're still a net exporter, are we not, of energy?
Yes, yes we are. I do love this idea.
Just making sure.
I do like the fact that he is actually pushing against GOP points, which is really weird.
But again, I think that's just a ploy to fucking get in, and then
46% of people said they would vote for President Trump.
Fucking party.
45% for President Biden. Mr. Oz, would you support a Trump 2024
run? Oh, this is going to be fucking
60
hilarious.
seconds?
I'll support whoever the Republican Party puts up. And I have reached out across the
Don't even
aisle
think about it.
on my campaign because I want to bring balance to Washington. And I've tried to work with Democrats and Republicans and people in the middle, and people unsure, and people who forgot, and people who got angry with where their party was headed. I want to bring us together to make this country do what
I mean,
it's
this message is his
not
best
divide,
shot
and
to get
address
it.
the
Like
problems
he
that
needs to be like this quote unquote moderating force that Democrats can feel good voting for. Like his best shot is to not to distance himself from Mastriano and have as many like Shapiro Oz voters as he possibly
enough money and not sidling up close enough to Bernie Sanders. He says he won't work with Joe Manchin. He said if you like Joe Manchin, don't vote for me. So if you're picking fights with your own party, you're not going to be able to reach across the aisle to the other side.
The things you said have been picking fights with your own party tonight.
Untenable for Republican lawmakers. We need to send someone to Washington who understands the importance of balance, sensible decision making, and a common sense approach to the challenges that we all face. That's not John Fetterman.
Mr. Oz, Donald Trump has supported you. He has endorsed you. Why won't you fully commit to supporting him in 2024?
Oh, I do. I would support Donald Trump if he decided to run for president.
All right.
But this is bigger than one candidate. This is a much bigger story about how we are going to build a bigger tent to let more Americans feel safe.
Are you concerned about the ongoing legal investigations involving the former president?
What?
30 seconds, sir.
My earpiece.
I followed them very carefully. I've been campaigning pretty aggressively. They'll work themselves out. I have tremendous confidence in the American legal system, and I believe law and order will reign supreme. But speaking about that topic, there's one person on this stage who's broken the law, we believe. John Fetterman took a shotgun, chased an unarmed African-American man, and put the gun, apparently, according to that man, to his chest. John, you weren't pulled over by the police. They let you go. You were the mayor at the time. Why haven't you apologized to that unarmed, innocent black man who you put a shotgun to?
I'm not going to respond to
chest?
that, dude.
All right, we will allow a 30-second response to that, Mr. Fetterman, specifically what he was saying referring to the incident in Braddock.
I would not respond to that.
I made the opportunity to defend our community as the chief law enforcement officer there. Everybody in Braddock, an overwhelmingly majority community of black community, all understood what happened. You know, they understood what happened, and everybody agreed that, and nobody believes that it was anything about me making a split-second decision to defend our community as well.
Why not apologize?
Mr. Oz, please. We are still with Mr.
like that's
Fetterman.
not a thing to
Turning
even
you
respond
right now.
to, dude.
Do you support
That's a
a
goat.
Biden run?
That's a
Do you
goat
support a
move. Come
Biden
on.
run in
Just go to him.
2024? Why in 60 seconds?
That's obviously, it's up to his choice whether he, and if he does choose to run, I would absolutely support him, but ultimately that's ultimately only his choice.
All right, thank you.
There's
Mr.
an easy
Fetterman. A
answer, dude.
follow-up question
That's what
on
I wanted
this.
from
Our next
Warnock.
poll
Like,
shows
stop bullshit.
51% of Pennsylvania voters disapprove of the
not that hard.
president's job performance. You have publicly supported many of his policy positions. Are there any that you disagree with? 30 seconds.
Jesus, I only get 30 seconds?
No, I just believe he needs to do more about supporting and fighting about inflation. And I do believe he can do more about that. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Biden is a good family man, and I believe he stands for the union way of life. And I believe that unemployment is already down to the lowest level in the last 50 years.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Let's turn now, gentlemen, to the issue of Social Security.
By the way,
It is only
that
fully
question should have been
funded
asked to
through
Oz, too.
2034.
What does he disagree with Trump on?
Many Americans are worried that they will never receive their full benefit.
Too busy campaigning, Jay. I'm not really paying attention to politics. I didn't really follow this shit until a year ago, you know?
For them, you have 60 seconds.
I'm running for office?
We need to make sure that Dr. Oz and the Republicans believe in cutting Medicare and Social Security. And I believe that they have to support and expand Social Security. And if somebody sends me to send me
This is a weird question to ask a Democrat. Like, how can you make sure they receive benefits by not cutting it? By letting it do what it's doing.
Mr. Oz, same question to you.
Yeah,
How are you going to
I'm not in the
make
party
sure
doing
Social
that.
Security is available for future Americans. You have 60 seconds.
We made a deal with the wonderful seniors of our nation. They worked their hearts out. They paid into a program.
That's what we're gonna
No one's
fuck
going to
all
touch
their
it on my
grandchildren.
watch except to make sure that it's stronger than it is right now. Social Security, Medicare, which I know a lot about as a doctor, are the fundamental element of security for our seniors, and they deserve to feel like they're valued by our nation. John Fetterman, again, has been running ads and saying that I'm against those with no proof. I've never said anything different than what I'm saying to you on this stage. But in an effort to fearmonger with people who are older and can be taken advantage of, he'll run these ads. John, it's reprehensible, but it's also reflective of your approach to doing these things. You haven't shown up on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from voters.
See, that's a shitty dig, dude. Like, the guy had a stroke. Come on, man. Like, that's a shitty dig.
Even, you know, just to show off that you could do it. And this is the only debate I could get you to come to talk to me on. And I had to beg on my knees to get you to come. And if it wasn't for Dennis probably getting involved, I don't think it would have happened. Seniors need to know more about your radical left positions, and I need to be able to tell them about my positions. That's what democracy is built on. We exchange ideas, the voters decide. You have hidden from them.
Mr. Oz, I'm going to let you have 15 seconds in a moment, Mr. Fetterman, but can you give us a specific example of what you would do to protect Social Security?
Well, for one, we have to make sure that it adequately increases with the higher inflation rates that we have. So we've got to make that 4% of wasted money that right now is in the budget redirected appropriately. And one of the first places that I would use it is Social Security and Medicare. And here's the reason. One of the worst things we can do to a people is give them bad quality care.
Don't tell Rick Scott.
Yeah, dude, your party is not going to do any of that.
Doctor, for example, if they can't afford it,
fucking zero.
Bad medicine.
Don't tell Kevin McCarthy.
No one
Watch out for Maverick Oz. Dr. Maverick Oz. Coming to the Senate.
Yeah, he's the new John McCain. Okay.
That's right.
Fucking hilarious.
Again, I can't just say one thing other than that Dr. Oz would not support, and he would support cutting Medicare. And that's
John, why do you say that? I've never said that.
It's absolutely a fact. It's a fact. You would have voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which has dropped our prescription drugs, and he doesn't believe.
Okay, gentlemen, we need to move on. Lisa.
All right, we are moving on to the topic of education. The cost of college
damn local fucking local news streams.
It's so bad.
Our question is for both of you. We start with Mr. Oz. What is your plan to bring down? Oz was referring to Mr. Fetterman.
Again, Dr. Oz, loves free money when it's a $500,000 tax break on one of his, homes down in a ranch in Florida, and whether it was a $50 tax break, about his farm in Montgomery County. So it's about supporting and helping, young earners, young students to give them a break. I believe that supporting.
All right, let me just ask specifically with the plan to ease student loan debt, the debt forgiveness of $10,000, $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Do you support that position?
I do absolutely support that. I believe, like I said, it's about helping young learners, be able to get a better start, getting off in the start of their life. And I do believe that, and I believe a majority of Americans support that as well too, helping young learners.
All right, Mr. Fetterman, I want to ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Oz. And what is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't answer. He didn't answer the question whatsoever.
I did answer the question.
Mr. Oz, please give him a moment.
You didn't. I fundamentally believe that every quality public university education should be very affordable in every state, and I think that needs to be a significant investment, to make sure that anyone be able to afford to go to get a 4-degree university degree, at Penn State or at Pitt or any state schools, to make it much more affordable, and that means acquiring a significant investment to make sure and create it affordable that every family can afford.
How exactly, Mr. Fetterman, do you propose doing that to make it more affordable for families?
No, I just believe making it that much more. It costs too much, and
gotta have policy.
Providing the resources to reduce the tuition, to allow families to be able to afford it.
All right, we have a follow-up question.
Not a great
this
answer
one now
me.
is for both of you. This is from News Nation viewer Ann Andrews, a registered nurse from
Also, can we get Oz to answer anything about education?
Like, I think he did, but I think we missed it because we were refreshing the feed.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what the fuck he said. Apparently didn't answer the question.
What he would be doing for vocational education in the state of Pennsylvania as well as our nation.
So, Mr. Oz, if elected, what would you do for
could clean up your
vocational
office before you got
education?
on
You have
TV,
30
geez.
seconds.
I've visited vocational schools. I have an answer, but John, because obviously I wasn't clear enough for you to understand this. There's no question that cutting
What
out
a
the middle levels of higher education and providing digital programs would reduce the cost of education. It's a concrete set of ideas that I'd like to move on. With regard to vocational education, this is really important for us to allow our trade unions to get more closely linked with the vocational schools. I was in a vocational school in Westmoreland, and they have about 1,000 kids. They could take 2,000 kids. Funding those programs is the smartest way to invest our tax dollars. We'll turn out twice as many children who have a job as soon as they graduate. It supports our trade unions who want those kids in their positions.
Your party
anyway.
doesn't
Make the whole
support
program.
unions.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. Mr.
What are you
Fetterman, if
talking
elected,
about?
what would you do for vocational
Wild
education?
liberal Dr.
You have
Oz.
30 seconds.
I mean, look, if he was actually going to hold some of these fucking policy positions, he wouldn't be having said it. I don't believe that he's going to do it.
And partnering with the unions and making sure that vocation training are is affordable and providing the resources to make sure everyone has the opportunity. Going to college isn't the right choice for every person, but going to those kind of vocational schools, able to create a career to reach a lot of high salary, and again, supporting to reduce those costs are critical too.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Moving now, multiple members of Congress, specifically Democrats, have called for the Supreme Court to be expanded. Candidates, we want to know where you stand on this. Mr. Fetterman, should the Supreme Court be expanded? And if so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I don't believe, I don't stand, and I don't believe in that. I fundamentally believe that even though I don't agree with the ideological breakup of the Supreme Court, I believe it's not about changing the rules, it's about acknowledging where we're at, much the way the Republicans want to try to change the Constitution about how our Supreme Court in Pennsylvania is going to be done, and I don't support that. So I think it's critical that we be consistent, and I do not believe in supporting the Supreme Court.
I don't agree with him, but it's a solid
should
answer.
the Supreme Court be expanded? If so, by how many justices?
Like,
You
hell
have
no,
60
we're
seconds.
winning.
I would never touch the makeup of the Supreme Court, and I would advocate to leave it the exact same size it is. But John Fetterman's radical positions have spilled over into what he would do in Washington. One of the first things he has said, and he
just
came back
told
to
you
the
he would.
campaign trail, is that he wanted to bust the filibuster, which means removing the
Has
brake
nothing
on
to
the
do with
Senate
the Supreme Court.
overreacting.
Nothing.
That's true. That is
Yeah,
true.
But
yeah,
if
fuck
do
you. It's
that,
absolutely true. Yeah.
Democrats in the Senate, without getting
Outta here.
the normal amount of votes, to actually expand the Supreme Court, add more states, do things that are detrimental to the well-being of the country.
Adding more states
I
is
think-
detrimental?
And your first day back arguing
who,
that we should
Republicans?
get rid of the filibuster is a dangerously radical move that would hurt Washington. It's not in our
How
nation's
dare we
best
get Washington, D.C. full congressional representation?
Thank you both.
What a crazy idea.
At this time,
What the fuck are you talking
we
about?
are ready for our closing statements. You each have 90 seconds to convince Pennsylvanians to vote for you on Election Day. Mr. Fetterman, you are first. 90 seconds.
Once again, I would just like to say that my campaign is all about fighting for anyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to get back up again. I'm also fighting for any forgotten community all across Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to be made to get back up. I've made my entire career dedicating to those kinds of pursuits. I started as a GED instructor back in Braddock over 20 years ago because I believe it's about serving Pennsylvania, not about using Pennsylvania for their own end interests as well. To me, careers are revealed by your real underlying values, and my values have always been about fighting for forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, your final thoughts, 90 seconds.
I've loved traveling to the four corners of the beautiful Commonwealth, and I've heard...
You guys got a really nice
problems.
state here.
I'm
Did
a
you know
surgeon.
that?
Doctor, I listened to what you're saying. I'm trying to help.
Never really been here before, but
I've talked to seniors
it
worried
looks
their Social
nice.
Security checks wouldn't go far enough with the raging inflation. I've talked to couples when I make their first down payment on a new house and they can't afford it anymore because of interest rates. I've talked to families.
You want to cut
petrified.
Social Security.
Mr. Fetterman, it's his turn
what?
for his closing.
I've talked to families worried about fentanyl showing up in their mailbox and literally taking the lives of their children who they find blue in bed. I've talked to families who won't let their kids go outside because of the crime wave that's been facilitated by left radical policies like the ones John Fetterman has been advocating for. But here's the deal, right? None of this has to happen. This is all very addressable. I'm a surgeon. I'm not a politician. We take big problems, we focus on them, and we fix them. We do it by uniting, by coming together, not dividing. And by doing that, we can get ahead. But I've got one question to challenge you with, just one question. If you take what I'm saying to heart, ask yourself this and others in your family. Are you unhappy with where America's headed? I am. And if you are as well, then I'm the candidate for change. I'm a living embodiment of the American dream. I believe we're the land of opportunity, the land of plenty. I believe we can balance a budget without recklessly spending. I believe we can have an unleashed energy policy that helps us all. I believe that we can have safe city streets and a secure border so legal immigrants can come across, but you shut the fentanyl out. I believe we can give parents choice in where their kids go to school. We can have affordable health care. But most of all, I believe in you. And if you can do this together...
Oh, they cut away from him right before the money shot. Sorry, Dr. Oz.
God bless you.
We do have one final question, an important issue in Pennsylvania. The eyes of the state are on this debate tonight, but on Sunday they will be on Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia as the state's two NFL teams.
All right.
Mr. Fetterman, Steelers or Eagles, and why?
Oh, boy.
Oh, clearly, always for the Steelers.
Mr. Oz.
I'll be at the game rooting for my Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Gentlemen,
Please
thank
stop. Please, for the love of God, please stop.
We do
Please
want to
stop.
thank our candidates for being with us.
All right.
Mr. Fetterman.
Like, wait, the Giants aren't playing. Like, what the like who the fuck am I supposed to support?
Oh my God. All right. Fucking yikes. Okay, like that was fine.
No, I mean it was not a good. It was not a good debate for Fetterman. And I mean his campaign knew that. Like they basically like were trying to expectation set before this. So like, yeah, this isn't his fucking MO.
I mean, look,
you know, yeah,
it's. I hate to say this because I mean this is the elephant in the room, right? Which is he suffers severely in the debate environment. One, I mean, he's like slightly an awkward guy anyway, but because of the stroke. Like and like I saw people in the chat.
But to be fair, I saw a lot of the Democratic primary debate between him and Kenny Walker and I can't remember and Connor Lamb. And
he's not a great debater anyway.
Even pre-stroke, like this, like debating is not his forte. For sure.
No, it's not. So I saw people in the chat who were supporters of Oz, like kind of making fun, like, oh, he's saying, like making fun of him. Like, dude, he had a stroke. Like,
yeah.
Like, if that's your argument against him, it's not a very good one. Like, you can disagree with his policies and stuff like that. It's like when Republicans make fun of, like, Joe Biden stumbling. Yeah, he has a speech impediment.
Yeah.
Like, again, if that's your best argument, you should probably come up with better policies.
Meanwhile, those same people are actively voting for a presidential candidate who fucking has dementia, basically.
Yes, who's a fucking maniac, right? Like,
yeah,
come on, dude,
and fucking talks like it. So,
right,
yeah, miss me with that shit. But no, like it was not a good performance for Fetterman.
No,
and Dr. Oz didn't have shit to talk about for policy, as you expect.
No.
But he came off really well. Like
yeah,
I think Oz's
he came off a
mission,
little bit more polished. Well, a lot.
Yeah,
more
I think Oz's mission was to get anyone who is not a Republican voter, or maybe is a Republican voter and like is like fucking mastering on it, crazy. Like basically to take all those people that were that were nervous about voting for John Fetterman and to convince and to basically give them permission to vote for
a split ticket,
which I think he did. Honestly, like if people are gonna base their voting decision off of this debate performance, I think that he opened the door for a lot of folks,
right,
to cast a ballot for him.
And look, I hope it is clear to people, and generally that's not the way it goes, but I would hope people would look at policy over just the sort of flash and bang kind of bits of politics. But as we know, a lot of people are just like, I don't pay attention to any policies. I watch a debate. I like that guy. I don't like that guy. That's it, right?
Well, and not only that, but I again, my whole thing was I think Fetterman's opportunity tonight was to be able to, like, Dr. Oz is going to have nothing but rhetoric. Like, we knew that because the Republicans don't have a fucking policy platform going on. So your big thing is, like, you need to be able to speak to the policies and what you're going to do for working Americans, and I don't think he did that very effectively. No. I think that's where he missed the most and had the most opportunity if he had taken advantage of it.
Right. And look, I think Fetterman's big issue, besides like just not coming off polished, I think his big issue is like he didn't have an answer for, and it could just be like his reaction time is much slower, right? But he didn't have an answer for like the fracking issue. Like, you said you never supported it, but now you say you do, right? Like, I feel like his campaign kind of screwed up in not preparing him to be able to, like, he should be able to pivot off of that and be like, well, actually, here's the context of why I said that. And like, maybe technology has changed, maybe things have changed. I don't know what the answer is. Or you just have to, sometimes in politics, sometimes, and it's a crazy idea, you have to be honest and just say, you know what, that was my stance. And then I talked to people around the state, and it turns out I was missing a lot of this, and I listened to these people, and I changed my stance. Now, that's disastrous when you talk about, like, from a climate change perspective and an environmental perspective and things like that. But at least it might work for some people to go, the guy was wrong, but at least he's honest. Like, he listened, and then you can pivot from that, right? From a politics perspective and say, look, I was wrong. I listened to people. They changed my mind. That's what a politician should do. They should listen to the constituents, and if their mind is changed, their mind is changed, right? And you can move on an issue. That's not a bad play, and that's probably where I would have played it. I don't think I would have just been like, I don't have an answer, because he, like, and again, that could just be his memory, it could be reaction time, but I could see to a casual viewer of this be like, that guy just didn't have an answer for that, and that makes the worst thing a politician can be is like wishy-washy, right? Like, that is the absolute worst thing they can do. Lying is fine. Going, like, you can objectively lie about things that people are like, I know that's not correct. The moon is in fact not made of cheese, but it's like, but if you said the moon was made of rocks and then the spare ribs the next day, you're fucked, right? Like, if they got those clips, you're fucked. Like, that's the worst thing. So for him, that was a disaster. Look, Oz is good on, like, Oz is going to be good because he's a TV guy, right? Like that. Yeah. That's where he's going to be.
Like I said, I just found it amusing how many established Republican policy positions
he's super against,
actively spoke against, which again I don't think is going to hold into office if he
no way,
election,
dude.
But,
he's now for, like, I loved his pivot. It was hilarious. Like, no, I don't support a $15 minimum wage. I think the wages should be much higher. Okay, and I think with fracking and all the unleashing our energy, it has gotten that. Then why is it still $7? Like, if what you say is true, and see, this to me is what happens when you don't have somebody who's like quick and fast on it. Because, like, again, can we just drop ship Tim Ryan into these debates for people? Like, just tag team in, because it's like that's a moment where you've been like, okay, I take what you said, but if it is working, then why is the minimum wage so low? Why aren't the wages as high as they are? You're promising
or just like how is expanding fracking going to help the fucking kid working at a Dairy Queen in North Pennsylvania?
Right. How does it help
rural PA?
Right. How does that help a nurse in rural PA? It doesn't. Right. Like, you could say, oh, sure, people in that industry might make more money, and that's a good thing, right? And that's a low level bonus to the economy. But like, if you increase everyone's minimum wage, like, if we all understand economics 101, right? Like, then that helps everybody. Like, this idea of like, no one can afford, companies can't afford $15 minimum wage. Look, it could be tough for a small company. That's true. But that's why maybe you don't change it all on day one. You can like ratchet it up over.
Or how about radical economic policy? How about you help subsidize some of the smaller companies and subsidize some of the wages of the smaller companies?
Yeah, give them a couple
by taxing larger corporations who have the fucking money to burn.
Right, exactly, right? Like, you can increase your tax base. So like this idea of, oh, this won't work, like, it hasn't worked anywhere, like, but it has. Like, they've raised the minimum wage to 15 in other states, And guess what? Those states didn't collapse. Like, they were fine.
They fucking prospered. Like, again, when you get people that aren't used to having disposable income, they're not fucking CEOs that are sitting on it and hoarding it and fucking passing it down generationally. They go spend it. Like,
that's what people
that just
do.
Drives the economy further.
I mean, look, if you don't believe that that's true, you can look at when Trump sent out checks to people. The reason why they do that isn't so people can take that $600 and put it in their bank account and never touch it. It was, I'm going to go buy a PlayStation. And that boosts the economy, dude. That money goes into the economy. It gets spent at small businesses, whether you run a pizzeria or something like that. People go and buy that pizza on a Friday night that they would normally buy because now they got $600 in their pocket. Or now they're making twice what they made before at their minimum wage job. Then all of a sudden they have money to spend on things, thus lifting the economy. This is Econ 101. This is not difficult.
You don't have to take our word for it. Like, you can literally look at American economic history. When you put right-wing fucking economic policies in place, it causes recessions. And when you put left-wing economic policies in place, the economy grows. Like, it's literally fucking there in black and white.
Right. Like, I don't understand these arguments that, again, when you're a politician, you're allowed to just objectively lie about things, lie about things that are objective facts. Like no, dude, like, the states that have a $15 minimum wage are doing fine. Like, they're doing totally fine. California is not is California financially suffering? No, it isn't. Like, it's not. Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland is going up to $15 where we are, is going up to $15 in 2025, right? Like, minimum wage in 2022 right now in Maryland is $12.50. They're like, you could even say, look, if you even said, look, I don't support changing it overnight, right? Like, minimum wage in Pennsylvania overnight is $15. Okay, I can even understand that argument. But I don't understand, like, okay, at next year we're going to put it to $10, and then in 2 years or a year we're going to put it to $12.50, and then after that, the third year we go to $15. I can understand that.
And you have to do it that way, because to raise it overnight shocks the economy to a degree that's disruptive. Like, you have to progressively do it. So.
Right. So New Jersey is, by 2024, is going to $15. Right now it's $13. Rhode Island, they're going to $15 an hour by 2025. Right now they're at $12.25. Virginia, like, same thing, right? So it's this idea that you can't do it, it's impossible, is simply not true.
Well, what's funny is that, again, like we talk all the time about, like, Republicans shooting their own voters in the face. People in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia don't have to fucking worry about this shit. Like, trust me, their cities will take care of that. Like, they will make sure that the minimum wage in Philly and the minimum wage in Pittsburgh is closer to $15. It's the people out in fucking rural PA that are going to get screwed in all this.
Exactly. The voters who vote predominantly for Republicans. Why would you support these guys who are just like, because, like, it's weird. It's a very weird thing that somehow rural voters or Republican voters, because not all Republican voters are rural, obviously, but like, that they're convinced, they are tricked into believing this bullshit of, like, no, you should suffer. Like, suffering is good, right? Like, that makes a real man out of you, a real woman out of you. Why do you have to suffer at, like, making $7.50 an hour, where you're doing this job that you're working your ass off? Why don't you deserve $12.50? Why don't you deserve $15? Well, because, like, that's a handout. It's not a handout. You have a minimum wage job. It is look, a minimum wage, if you really want to know what the definition of a minimum wage is, your job would pay you less if they could, but the government says you can't fuck people over worse than you're fucking them right now. So anybody arguing that it shouldn't be higher, you're basically, or, like, get rid of the minimum wage, because that's basically Oz's point, by the way. Right? That's the undercover point of what he's saying. Oh, I think it should be way higher. We shouldn't need a federal mandate. Yeah. So you really think companies that could exploit workers and pay them less than $7.50 wouldn't? Yes, they would.
I will say, I am super amused by the simultaneous idea that's able to be held by Republicans, where inflation is out of control, but let's let the market fix it. The market's why inflation's out of control, you fucking idiots.
Right. But and also, you know, Joe Biden and inflation, I can't believe what they're doing in DC. Hey, have you looked at what the inflation rate is around the world? In Turkey and Greece, it's over 80%. There is a global inflation issue going on. It has everything to do with us still sort of kind of being in a pandemic. Like, it has a lot to do with that. We're at 8.2% as of like yesterday.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, we're doing better than everywhere else in the world.
I think that puts us like around like the 100th highest inflation rate currently.
There are 100 countries that have higher inflation rates around the world. Is Joe Biden and the Democrats, are they in charge of all of those?
Yes, Jay. Yes.
the secret fucking deep state cabal.
The Democrats have their spidery hands all over the world's economy to drive inflation everywhere.
I always knew it.
Due to our policies.
Crafty John Fetterman cranking the inflation rate in Greece to 80%.
Joe Biden literally made Liz Truss crater the pound in England to get her out of prime ministership after 8 weeks.
I really think she's got a Trump, Margaret Thatcher style. I quit. Yeah, what the fuck, man? It's because Republicans don't understand economics. They don't. Or they do, but they know their constituency won't take the time to actually call them out on the bullshit that they push. So, like, yeah, like, all that shit Oz is saying about, like, we need, higher minimum wage, or a higher wages for everybody. Understand that the underlying point there is there should be no minimum wage. That's what his real point is. It's the same thing with Andrew Yang. Oh, I think we should have universal basic income. Oh, by the way, I also think we should get rid of the minimum wage. Oh, interesting. Interesting. How would that work? Yeah. One is going to eat itself, right? It's a useless fucking policy if you don't have a floor. Right? It's like, here's $1,000 a month. Cool, my job is now paying me $2.50. So
right, because you're already getting $1,000 a month from the government.
Well,
so,
then you're done.
You don't need to get paid.
Right.
Yeah.
So miss me with that bullshit. So yeah, look, I think Oz did a pretty good job, like you said, of making a compelling argument to be like, hey man, if you want to do a split ticket, with a Democrat as governor and me as your senator, I think that's cool. Like, look, man, I support kind of stuff you like, right? Like, I'm cool with it. Even though, like you said, if he were to get into office in the Senate, he would do none of those things. He would support none of that.
He would just vote. He would vote lockstep. He would do what McCain gets to do, or he'd probably do what like people like Murkowski and Collins get to do. Like, he would vote lockstep when it matters. And then they would give him like his fucking like show vote when it doesn't.
Yeah, it's pet project. Essentially. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can go out there and vote against this just to look good, just to look like a moderate. So
yeah, absolutely. So look, again, I thought he looked polished, but I think the one thing that could turn people off is like your hoodie sweatshirt Pennsylvanians, if you will, who I think really like Fetterman. I think the thing that the thing that will turn them off about Oz is that he's overly polished and he doesn't feel real. He doesn't feel real. Like he feels like a guy, quite literally, he feels like a carpetbagger coming in to be like, hey, Pennsylvania, cool state you got here, right? It's like, you don't fucking live here, dude. Like, you don't, man. Like, you.
Well, and again, that's the ingredient that he's missing. That Trump, for all of his fucking woes, definitely has. Like, he definitely does not come off like a guy who's like a multimillionaire in any way, shape, or form. He comes off like a dullard who can who can speak down to people,
right?
Speak on people's lower level. So
yeah, Oz feels incredibly disconnected, like super disconnected. And again, I wish Fetterman had the sort of like the fast timing on some of that stuff, because some of that stuff that Oz said could have been just hammered down. Like, I would have called out his carpetbagging, like, a lot. Like that, like, to me, that is an argument that you could make that is inescapable. Like, okay, you say you love the state. You're not, again, much like Walker, you're not even fucking from here. You're not, dude. Yeah. You're pretending you care about these people. Like, Fetterman had the line a couple times of, I'm here to like help Pennsylvania, not to use Pennsylvania. That's a good line, but it wasn't delivered with like the level of oomph for obvious reasons. Like, because that's his point. It's like, yo, I'm not just trying to like jumpstart whatever fake political career I'm working on here. I'm actually here to help people. I have a history of helping people in Pennsylvania. You just got here. Like, you don't even know what grocery store we go to, dude. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I would have landed a couple more blows. So I agree with you. It was not a good debate for Fetterman. at all, like at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think if you like John Fetterman and you realize what's going on with him, I think you're not changing your mind. I think if you like Dr. Oz, I don't think you're changing your mind. I think if you were on the fence about Oz and whether or not he could seem political and stuff, I think he might have won some people over. But I also think, there was a couple of articles that came out today about like how some Pennsylvanians who have suffered strokes or some disability are starting to see themselves in Fetterman. Like, I think that's going to ring very true when people watch that debate and go, yeah, man, like my uncle went through that, or I went through that. Like, saying like, oh, sorry, I had to explain it to you and stuff like that. That feels like you're talking down to somebody in a bad way. And look, I know Oz probably meant it to be a dig, but it might come off even worse for him. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be a tight race. I don't think this is going to be a
well. I think it was always going to be a tight race, and I think that this was always going to be a tighter race than the gubernatorial race was going to be. I didn't.
No, that's going to be a walk away. That's going to be a walk away.
It's not looking good. And so again, that was like we mentioned up front. Like that kind of was Oz's mission, is to find as many split ticket voters as he can. And I think that this goes a long way to doing that. Honestly, I do. Like I said, I think he won the debate from a performance standpoint going away. Like it's unequivocal.
Yeah. No, I don't even think I agree with you. I don't think it's even an argument. But look, if you're thinking about voting for Dr. Oz and you're like, actually want to help Pennsylvania, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Because like whatever he says that makes it sound nice and reasonable, he will vote in lockstep with some of the most hardcore right-wingers in the country. Like 100%. Look, he's not as bad as Doug Mastriano, who is a fucking lunatic, but like he's not great either. Like that, like don't mistake those two guys. Like either there's Doug Mastriano or John Fetterman. Like no, there are other options, right? And like I think Oz is going to be way more standard Republican bullshit than some like John McCain style like Maverick, who wasn't really that much of a Maverick anyway, right? So, but I think people have that idea that he was, and look, good on Oz to try to pivot to that. Like it was clever, but I think anybody paying attention to the shit that he says and supports, like if you really get past the sort of shallowness of what he was saying, you can kind of pick up on it, right? Like this idea of like, would you, his point on abortion, right? And he's like, well, I just think it shouldn't be a federal thing. Okay, but what is your actual fucking stance, dude? Like, okay, you think the state should be the one to regulate that. That's still a problem. And again, Fetterman wasn't able to like latch on and hit him on that because it's like, cool, I'm glad you don't think the federal government should do it. I don't give a shit because that's still irrelevant because you're still putting a politician in the room between a woman and her doctor. Like, that's the problem. It's not like, I don't know why Republicans think that's somehow better. It isn't. They want politicians out of the decision, not just federal level politicians. It doesn't matter. And it's like, well, I don't want a federal mandate. Okay, but if the federal mandate is to give women body autonomy, that's hardly the same as the federal government coming in and saying you can only have an abortion up to this many weeks. That's not the same thing. Those two things are not equal. And if you think they're equal, your brain needs a couple of wrinkles in it, dude. Like they're fucking not equal. Like they're just simply not equal. And I don't understand why people make shitty arguments like that. But I don't know, man. People are real TV folks, and I'm really hoping that people pay more attention to the things that are said and the things that are not said on purpose.
Jay, you were giving the average voter way too much.
I'm saying I hope. I don't think people pay attention to context of shit. Like, and I think that's why Oz talks in the way that he does. Look, he's a fucking salesman. Oh, I'm a surgeon. Nah, dude. In the last like heavy parts of your career, you're a salesman. You sell a bunch of bullshit, and like you're good at it. You're good at it, and you're selling a bunch of bullshit tonight. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Any final words before we get done here?
No, I mean the debate at least was a little bit more substantive than the Georgia debate was for sure. Because you at least, I mean, Fetterman, could not, string a sentence together really well, but at least he was trying to talk about like real policy shit instead of just whatever gobbledygook that was coming out of Herschel Walker's mouth.
That is correct. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Somehow Fetterman, even post-stroke, more coherent than Herschel Walker. Like
that's not a surprise at all.
Easily. All right, so I'm gonna actually end this stream, and we're just gonna do our show normally. I'll just release it per usual. All right, so that's it for our debate coverage and post debate for the Pennsylvania Senate race between John Fetterman and Dr. Oz, aka Tyson Fury, versus Dr. Nick Riviera. All right, guys, we will see you guys next time.
See ya.